Hey, this is Tony from the Cold Case Project, where we focus on unsolved cases across the United States. Our mission is to bring attention to these unresolved mysteries that need your help. All the information we cover in these cases is readily available on the internet, but we rewrite and repurpose it for the purpose of these videos. Our goal is to spread the word about the thousands of unsolved cold cases still out there. Thank you for watching. If you want to help shed light on these cases, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Your support can make a difference.
The disappearance of Evelyn Louise Piper is a deeply perplexing and tragic case that has left her family and the community of Columbus, Georgia, searching for answers for nearly 3 decades. Evelyn, a 54-year-old woman known for her generosity, intelligence, and strong will, vanished without a trace on November 30th, 1994. Her case is shrouded in mystery, with conflicting stories, suspicious behavior, and a lack of concrete evidence. This is the story of Evelyn Piper's disappearance, the investigation that followed, and the enduring quest for justice. Evelyn Louise Piper, born Evelyn Louise Kiermaier, was a well-respected and beloved figure in Columbus, Georgia. She was the oldest of 3 siblings, raised in a family with strong German roots. Her father, who immigrated from Germany at the age of 15, and her mother, who grew up in a German community in Wisconsin, instilled in Evelyn a strong work ethic and a deep sense of family values. Evelyn was known for her intelligence, having been at the top of her class, and her entrepreneurial spirit. Evelyn had been married twice, with her second marriage to Larry Downing ending in divorce. Despite the challenges in her personal life, Evelyn was a devoted mother to her 3 children, Debbie, James, and Stephen. Tragically, Stephen died in a horrific car accident in 1993, a loss that deeply affected Evelyn. Following his death, she received a substantial settlement, which she used to support her family and her church, demonstrating her generous nature. Evelyn had retired early from her job at Fort Benning, a military base, to pursue her own business ventures. She was involved in selling Premier Designs jewelry and operated honor boxes, small vending machines for candy, and local businesses. She was also an active member of her community and her church, where she was known for her kindness and dedication. On November 30th, 1994, Evelyn called her daughter, Debbie Moore, at 9 a.m. During their conversation, Evelyn asked Debbie to pick up her mail and check on her house while she was away. Debbie thought nothing of it, as Evelyn often traveled for her jewelry business. However, just 15 minutes later, Evelyn called back with a startling announcement. She was going to Jerusalem, Israel, to get married. Debbie was shocked, as Evelyn was not dating anyone at the time and had not mentioned any plans to travel abroad. Evelyn promised to return in a week and even told Debbie that she would give her and her husband the house upon her return. Evelyn's sudden announcement raised immediate red flags. She had no passport, no visa, and no record of purchasing a plane ticket. Despite these inconsistencies, Debbie initially dismissed the call as a joke. However, when Evelyn failed to return by the following Sunday, Debbie grew increasingly concerned. Days after Evelyn's disappearance, Debbie and her husband went to the Columbus Municipal Airport to check on Evelyn's honor boxes. While there, they discovered Evelyn's blue 1991 Mitsubishi hatchback abandoned in a long-term parking lot. The car was unlocked, and inside, they found Evelyn's Bible, her Premier Designs jewelry, and a pair of shoes lying on the floorboard as if she had stepped out of the car without them. There was no sign of Evelyn, and no parking ticket was found in the vehicle. The discovery of the car deepened the mystery. If Evelyn had planned to fly to Israel, why was her car left at the airport? Why were her personal belongings, including her jewelry and Bible, left behind? These questions haunted Debbie and her family, who began to suspect foul play. The investigation into Evelyn's disappearance was fraught with challenges from the start. When Debbie reported her mother missing, the Columbus Police Department initially refused to take the case, claiming it was outside their jurisdiction since Evelyn lived in Phoenix City, Alabama. Debbie then contacted the Lee County Sheriff's Office, which launched an investigation. Authorities quickly identified several suspicious elements in Evelyn's disappearance. First, there was no record of Evelyn purchasing a plane ticket or obtaining a passport, making her claim of traveling to Israel implausible. Second, Evelyn had withdrawn $10,000 in cash from her bank account on the day she disappeared. This was highly unusual, as Evelyn was known to be cautious with her finances and would typically use cashier's checks for large sums of money. Additionally, Evelyn's ex-husband, Larry Downing, became a person of interest in the case. Larry had a criminal history, including burglary, and had been financially dependent on Evelyn during their marriage. After their divorce, Evelyn had won a $55,000 settlement from Larry, of which he had only paid $1,400. Evelyn had planned to take him back to court to recover the remaining money, but she disappeared before she could do so. Larry Downing's behavior in the days following Evelyn's disappearance raised further suspicions. Just 10 days after Evelyn vanished, Larry pawned her wedding ring and his own wedding band for $300. The pawn shop employee confirmed that Larry had sold the rings and provided a thumbprint, which matched Evelyn's records. Larry claimed that Evelyn had given him the rings a year earlier, but this was contradicted by recent photographs showing Evelyn wearing the rings shortly before her disappearance. Larry also sold rare coins that Evelyn had purchased as an investment. These coins, worth an estimated $25,000, were sold to a pawn shop in Spring, Texas. The proceeds from these sales were never accounted for, and the coins themselves have never been recovered. Larry's actions, combined with his history of financial dependence on Evelyn, made him a prime suspect in her disappearance. However, despite the circumstantial evidence, authorities were unable to build a strong enough case to charge him. One of the most bizarre aspects of Evelyn's disappearance is the story of a man seen running across the runway at the Columbus Municipal Airport on the day she vanished. According to a security guard, a man matching Larry Downing's description, approximately 5 feet 9 inches with dark brown hair, a mustache, and a muscular build, was seen running down the runway and jumping a fence into a nearby subdivision. The guard and other airport personnel chased the man but were unable to catch him. The description of the man closely matched Larry's appearance, leading Debbie and her family to believe that he was involved in Evelyn's disappearance. However, authorities were unable to confirm the identity of the man or connect him directly to Evelyn's case. In the years following Evelyn's disappearance, her black leather hobo-style purse was found in another state. The purse contained her identification, but no other personal items. The discovery of the purse raised more questions than answers. How did it end up in another state? Who took it and why? Despite the strange find, investigators were unable to trace the purse back to any specific individual or location. Evelyn's son, James Piper, also came under scrutiny during the investigation. James had a history of drug-related crimes and had been living in Atlanta at the time of his mother's disappearance. Shortly after Evelyn vanished, James moved into her house in Phoenix City and began writing checks from her bank account. He claimed that Evelyn had given him permission to do so, but Debbie and other family members disputed this. James's behavior in the months following Evelyn's disappearance was erratic. He hosted drug parties at the house and failed to pay the mortgage, leading to the eventual foreclosure of the property. Despite his suspicious actions, James denied any involvement in his mother's disappearance and claimed he had an alibi for the day she vanished. However, his relationship with Larry Downing and his criminal history made him a person of interest in the case. Despite the efforts of law enforcement and Evelyn's family, the case has remained unsolved for nearly 30 years. The lack of a body, a crime scene, or direct evidence has made it difficult to bring charges against any suspect. Larry Downing, the primary person of interest, has never been formally charged in connection with Evelyn's disappearance. He has since moved on with his life, remarrying and starting a new family. Evelyn's family, particularly her daughter Debbie and her sister Millie, have never given up hope of finding answers. They believe that foul play was involved in Evelyn's disappearance and that Larry Downing knows more than he has revealed. However, without concrete evidence, the case remains at a standstill. Evelyn's disappearance has had a profound impact on her family. Debbie Moore, her daughter, has spent nearly 3 decades searching for answers. She has contacted law enforcement, media outlets, and even politicians in an effort to keep her mother's case in the public eye. Despite her efforts, progress has been slow, and the case has largely faded from public attention. Millie Potter, Evelyn's sister, has also been deeply affected by her sister's disappearance. She remembers Evelyn as a kind, intelligent, and generous woman who did not deserve to vanish without a trace. Millie and Debbie continue to honor Evelyn's memory and hope that one day they will find the answers they so desperately seek. Several theories have emerged over the years regarding Evelyn's disappearance. The most widely accepted theory is that she was the victim of foul play, likely at the hands of someone she knew. Larry Downing, with his history of financial dependence on Evelyn and his suspicious behavior after her disappearance, is the primary suspect. However, without a body or direct evidence, it is impossible to prove his involvement. Another theory is that Evelyn may have staged her own disappearance. This theory is largely dismissed by her family, who believe that Evelyn would never have abandoned her loved ones or left behind her cherished possessions, including her Bible and jewelry. Finally, some have speculated that Evelyn may have been the victim of a random crime or abduction. However, the lack of evidence and the suspicious behavior of those close to her make this theory unlikely. Evelyn's family continues to search for justice. They have reached out to media outlets, including Unsolved Mysteries, in an effort to raise awareness of her case. They have also contacted law enforcement and politicians, urging them to reopen the investigation and pursue new leads. Despite the challenges, Evelyn's family remains hopeful that one day they will find the answers they so desperately seek. They believe that someone, somewhere, knows what happened to Evelyn and that justice will eventually be served. If you have any information about the disappearance of Evelyn Louise Piper, please contact the Lee County Sheriff's Office at 749-5651. Evelyn's family deserves answers, and any information, no matter how small, could be the key to solving this decades-old mystery. On the morning of October 30th, 2003, 28-year-old Marcy Peterson was last seen at approximately 11 a.m. in the vicinity of the 2400 block of Cumberland Parkway in Marietta, Georgia. At the time, she was staying at Studio Plus, an extended-stay motel near Pace's Ferry Road and Interstate 285. It was an unremarkable Thursday, the day before Halloween, but for Marcy, it would be the last time anyone saw her alive. Marcy, born May 29, 1975, was a mother of 5 children. She had been going through a turbulent period in her life, but was working to get back on her feet. She had recently reunited with her estranged husband after less than a year of separation. The couple had been attempting to reconcile, though tensions remained. Despite past struggles, including serving a few months in jail for misdemeanor charges, which cost her the mortgage business she had once successfully run, her family believed she was looking toward a fresh start. Her sister later stated that, while Marcy had experienced significant hardships, she didn't seem particularly distressed or in danger when she vanished. However, clues in the days leading up to her disappearance would later suggest otherwise. Shortly before she went missing, Marcy confided in her mother about a disturbing encounter. She had borrowed $30,000 from a man, and when she failed to pay it back, he chased her with a car and threatened to kill her. This was no idle warning. It was a chilling precursor to what might have happened to her. Additionally, Marcy had been financially supported in part by another man, one who had paid for her education. Investigators later discovered that this man was using an alias, raising suspicions about his true identity and possible involvement in her disappearance. Whether these 2 men played a direct role in her fate remains unknown. The morning she disappeared, Marcy did not take her children with her, nor did she leave any clear indication of where she was going. She never contacted her family again. No calls, no bank activity, no digital footprint. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist. Speculation arose that she may have traveled to New York, though there was no concrete evidence to support this claim. With foul play suspected, authorities searched for any sign of her, but no arrests were ever made, and no remains were found. Over the years, investigators and internet sleuths have linked her disappearance to unidentified Jane Does found across the country. One particular case involved skeletal remains discovered in Petersburg, Virginia, in 2007. The remains, estimated to belong to a woman between 20 and 39 years old, had been partially washed up against a bridge. 5 years later, a human skull was found 2 miles away, confirmed to belong to the same individual. While some believe the physical characteristics match Marcy, there has been no official confirmation. Another unidentified woman was found in Maryland in 2008. She had an estimated height of 5 feet 8 inches and had suffered a previously healed broken elbow. In Florida, skeletal remains of a woman who died sometime between 2002 and 2014 were discovered in 2014. However, given that Marcy had no known gap at her teeth, one of the defining characteristics of the Florida Jane Doe, this lead was deemed unlikely. Marcy had several tattoos, which could serve as key identifying markers should remains ever be found. She had a 1 to 2 inch Chinese symbol tattoo on the back of her neck, another Chinese symbol on her mid to lower back, and the name Carl tattooed on her upper left breast. At the time of her disappearance, she may have been wearing silver sunglasses, silver stud earrings, and a silver necklace. Marcy Peterson's case remains open. Nearly 2 decades have passed since she disappeared, and her children have grown up without answers. Theories abound. Was she a victim of financial entanglements gone wrong? Did she flee and start a new life elsewhere? Or did something far more sinister occur? On January 5, 2018, 31-year-old Thomas Joseph T.J. Negro vanished under mysterious circumstances near Franklin, Georgia, leaving his family, friends, and investigators searching for answers. T.J., an Army veteran with a history of service and survival skills, was reportedly dropped off at the intersection of Bevis Road and GBI Road in Heard County, near the 9,000-acre West Point Wildlife Management Area, by a woman who claimed to have picked him up while he was hitchhiking in Columbus, Georgia. According to her account, TJ told her he was planning to meet a friend in the area and go camping for a week, carrying camping equipment, including a rolled-up sleeping bag and a heavy-duty black bag. However, this account has raised several questions, as TJ reportedly left behind critical personal items, including his cell phone, wallet, passport, keys, and sunglasses at his home in Columbus, which is unusual for someone planning a camping trip. TJ, born on October 13, 1986, was 5 feet 6 inches tall, weighed between 160 and 180 pounds, had short brown hair that may have grown out by the time he went missing, and brown eyes. He was usually clean-shaven, but may have had a beard at the time of his disappearance, and had distinctive tattoos, including a ranger emblem in black ink on one shoulder and a Valkyrie figure with wings spanning from his chest to his back in colored ink on the other shoulder. TJ was an Army veteran who had sustained head and back injuries in a helicopter crash during his deployment, which limited his ability to walk long distances, making his decision to go camping in a remote area even more puzzling. Despite his injuries, TJ had survival skills that could have allowed him to endure in the wilderness for an extended period. The circumstances surrounding TJ's disappearance have been difficult for investigators to piece together, as the woman who claimed to have dropped him off stated that he had a cell phone with him, but TJ's family confirmed that his phone, along with his wallet, passport, keys, and sunglasses, were left at his home in Columbus, leading to questions about the accuracy of her account. Authorities conducted extensive searches of the West Point Wildlife Management Area and surrounding regions, but found no sign of TJ or his camping equipment, and a vast, densely wooded area made it challenging to conduct a thorough search. Several aspects of TJ's disappearance remain unclear, including the identity of the friend he was supposed to meet, why he left essential belongings behind, and how he planned to navigate the remote area given his physical limitations. In the years since TJ's disappearance, several sets of unidentified human remains have been found in Georgia and nearby Alabama, including a John Doe found in Chattahoochee, Alabama, on December 23, 2020, with remains discovered near Highway 148, including a human skull and thermal underwear. A John Doe found in Columbus, Georgia, on November 29, 2018, with remains found behind a trailer on a walking trail. A John Doe found in Davidson, Alabama, on June 9, 2019, with a human skull found on the shore of Horseshoe Bend. A John Doe found in Jonesboro, Georgia, with remains discovered in a wooded area near Jester Creek. And a John Doe found in Jonesboro, Georgia, in 2024, with remains found in a creek by individuals collecting deer stands. While none of these cases have been confirmed to be TJ, they highlight the challenges of identifying remains in remote areas and the possibility that TJ's disappearance could be connected to an unidentified person case. TJ's family and investigators continue to seek answers about his disappearance. And if you have any information about TJ Negro or his whereabouts, please contact the Heard County Sheriff's Office or the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, as even small details or hearsay could provide critical leads in this case. The disappearance of Thomas Joseph TJ Negro remains a haunting mystery, and despite his survival skills and military background, the circumstances of his vanishing raise more questions than answers, leaving his family and investigators searching for closure. Simon Powell was a man known for his hard work and dedication. A logger by trade, he was a well-respected member of the Waynesboro, Georgia community. Standing between 6 feet 3 inches and 6 feet 8 inches, Powell was a towering figure, yet he was known to be kind-hearted and dependable. He spent his days running his tree-cutting business, providing for his family, and maintaining a strong presence in his neighborhood. However, on the evening of June 1st, 2016, Powell's routine was shattered, and he vanished without a trace. The last confirmed sighting of Simon Powell was around 7 p.m. at his home on River Road. He was outside, engaged in a phone conversation when, suddenly, the call ended abruptly. That was the last time anyone heard from him. As night fell, concerns grew. Family members tried to reach him, but their calls went unanswered. Something was wrong. By the early hours of June 2nd, Powell's white 2012 Ford F-350 pickup truck was discovered abandoned and burned on Wilson Road, several miles from his home. The sight of the charred vehicle only deepened the mystery. Law enforcement arrived at the scene, searching for any sign of Powell, but there was no trace of him, no remains, no clues, nothing to explain what had happened. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation into Powell's disappearance intensified. Authorities combed the area, conducted searches, and interviewed potential witnesses. Despite their efforts, leads were scarce. The discovery of his burned truck suggested foul play. But without a body, the case remained in limbo. Years passed, and the case remained unsolved. Powell's family, desperate for answers, never stopped seeking justice. Then, in July 2022, a major break occurred. Authorities arrested Stacy Lynn Welch, charging her with murder, armed robbery, and kidnapping. Shortly after, Mitchell Linnell Lambert was arrested and charged with the same crimes. Welch was Lambert's girlfriend at the time of Powell's disappearance, and investigators believe they were both involved in his presumed murder. According to reports, Welch had allegedly confided in an acquaintance that Lambert had killed Powell. When police confronted her, Welch provided a disturbing account of what had happened. She claimed that Lambert and 2 unidentified Hispanic men had forced Powell to pull his vehicle over on the side of the road. From there, Powell was taken to a remote hunting cabin known as the Sugar Shack, where he was brutally murdered. Authorities searched the Sugar Shack for evidence. They found a machete, but it showed no traces of blood. However, a pair of scissors recovered from the scene tested positive for blood. Welch changed her story multiple times, initially stating Powell had been suffocated in a bag. Later, she claimed he was murdered in a more gruesome manner. Her inconsistent statements raised questions about the reliability of her testimony. As part of their investigation, Law enforcement used cadaver-sniffing dogs to search a nearby pond where Welch had claimed Powell's remains were dumped. The first search yielded no results, and while material was recovered from a second pond, forensic testing could not confirm whether the remains were human. The mystery of Powell's final resting place remains unsolved. Lambert denied any involvement in Powell's disappearance and murder, though he admitted to having met him and visited his home. Authorities were also unable to identify the two Hispanic men Welch had mentioned. Despite the lack of concrete evidence tying them directly to Powell's murder, Welch and Lambert were charged. In a surprising turn, both were released, Lambert on bond and Welch on her own recognizance, while awaiting trial. Powell's family has remained vocal in their pursuit of justice. They do not believe he would have willingly abandoned his life, his business, or his responsibilities. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance and presumed murder point overwhelmingly to foul play. Without a body, however, prosecution remains a challenge. Until his remains are found and the full story comes to light, Powell's disappearance remains one of Waynesboro's most haunting, disturbing mysteries. On the evening of September 4th, 1998, in the quiet town of Unadilla, Georgia, 8-year-old Shai Kimia Pate was playing outside her home on Crumpler Avenue. It was a Friday, and the town was abuzz with excitement for the local high school football game. The event was a weekly ritual that brought the community together, and Shai Kimia, affectionately known as Shai, was eagerly anticipating the night out with her family. However, in a span of moments, she vanished without a trace, leaving behind a heartbroken family and a mystery that has haunted the town for decades. That afternoon, Shai Kimia had gone to school, as usual, and received her daily breathing treatment from her mother, Veronica Pate. She suffered from severe asthma, required frequent breathing treatments, and had an underdeveloped kidney, which required special medical care. Despite these health challenges, Shai Kimia was a bright, cheerful child who loved school, church, and spending time with her siblings. After school, she walked the short distance home, where she changed into her game night outfit, a neon green Atlanta Braves jersey with red lettering, Levi's jeans, and white K-Swiss sneakers. Around 7 p.m., she played outside as her older sister, Laswanda, prepared to take her to the football game. Laswanda had a performance as part of the high school color guard and planned to pick up Shai Kimia on her way. Before heading to get gas, Laswanda briefly saw her sister standing on the corner and waved at her. By the time she returned, Shai Kimia was gone. At first, the Pate family assumed that Shai Kimia had simply gotten a ride with a friend or wandered to a neighbor's house. However, as night fell and she failed to return home, worries set in. By midnight, her mother contacted the local police, only to be met with the outdated and frustrating response that they needed to wait 24 hours before an investigation could begin. Unwilling to wait, the family and neighbors immediately searched the neighborhood, calling out her name and checking with anyone who might have seen her. It wasn't until 14 hours later that the sheriff's office was notified, stepping in to take over the investigation. The delay in response may have cost valuable time in the search for the missing child. Authorities canvassed a 5-block radius, knocking on doors, searching homes, and interviewing neighbors. The community, though tightly knit, was also troubled by issues like drug activity and gambling, particularly near the Roxy Club, a known hotspot in the area. One lead came from a neighbor named Keith Caldwell, who had hosted a birthday party that evening. He and his girlfriend stated that Shai Kimia had stopped by briefly, was given a hot dog, and then left, saying she was waiting for her sister. Another witness claimed to have seen her walking alone, while others reported seeing her with a group of girls. These conflicting accounts complicated the timeline of her disappearance. Police consider the possibility that Shai Kimia was taken by someone she knew. One individual of interest was Quentin Droopy Kendrick, an 18-year-old who had a history of sexual violence. In 1994, he had pleaded guilty to raping a classmate, and by 2001, he faced multiple charges of rape, kidnapping, and assault involving young girls. Despite these serious offenses, no direct evidence linked Kendrick to Shai Kimia's disappearance. Over the years, theories have emerged. Some believe she was abducted by someone familiar to her, possibly a neighbor. Others think she may have been taken by a transient predator. Given her medical needs, law enforcement officials have suggested that she would have struggled to survive long without proper care. Her mother, however, holds on to hope. Veronica Pate has expressed a belief that her daughter might still be alive, but brainwashed or unaware of her true identity. This theory is not unheard of in cases of long-term abduction, where children are raised under false pretenses. Despite various efforts, including the involvement of the FBI, reward offers, and public awareness campaigns, no trace of Shai Kimia has ever been found. In 2012, investigators pursued a lead regarding a girl in Michigan who bore a striking resemblance to what Shai Kimia might look like as a young adult. However, it turned out to be a cousin, not Shai Kimia herself. In 2016, the Pate family organized a 5K walk, Rock One Sock for Shai, to raise awareness for missing children. Veronica has continued to push for answers, refusing to let her daughter's case fade into obscurity. For over 2 decades, the mystery of Shai Kimia Pate's disappearance has remained unsolved. Her family continues to feel the weight of the unknown, caught between hope and grief. Veronica Pate once recalled an emotional moment at a Walmart when her grandson briefly hid from her under a clothing rack, triggering an intense reaction fueled by the trauma of losing her daughter. The fear of losing another child, even for a brief moment, was unbearable. As years have passed, authorities have admitted that early investigative mistakes, particularly the delay in treating Shai Kimia's case as an emergency, hindered potential progress. Yet, her family refuses to give up, believing that someone out there knows the truth. Authorities still urge anyone with information to come forward. Even the smallest detail could be the key to solving this heartbreaking mystery. Shai Kimia would be in her mid-30s today. If alive, she may have no memory of her past, but her family remains steadfast in their hope of one day bringing her home. On the warm summer evening of August 6, 1992, 36-year-old Belinda Nored was last seen in Acworth, Georgia. Witnesses recall she was engaged in a heated argument with her boyfriend, Stephen Creasman, before the two drove off in her silver Nissan pickup truck. That night, Belinda's 14-year-old daughter was staying elsewhere, unaware that it would be the last time she would see her mother. When she returned to their mobile home in the Shadowwood Mobile Home Park the next day, her mother was gone. A phone cord, a comforter, and her truck had vanished with her. Her 19-year-old son, who had been home that night, assumed his mother had left before he woke up the next morning. But as the hours passed, concern turned to dread. Belinda Nored had disappeared without a trace. 6 weeks later, her silver Nissan was found abandoned in a Marietta, Georgia shopping center. There was no sign of her, no clues as to what had happened that night. The most obvious suspect was the man she was last seen with, Stephen Creasman. And for good reason. Creasman was no stranger to tragedy and suspicion. In fact, Belinda Nored was not the first woman in his life to go missing or turn up dead. 3 years earlier, in 1989, another of Creasman's girlfriends, Twyla Mickey, vanished without a trace. The circumstances of her disappearance bore eerie similarities to Nored's case. Twyla had been in a volatile relationship with Stephen, just as Belinda had been. She, too, was reported missing under suspicious circumstances. And like Belinda, she was never found. But the most chilling case tied to Creasman was the murder of his wife, Rita Creasman, in 1986. On a seemingly ordinary day in Marietta, Georgia, Stephen claimed that Rita had gone out to run errands and never returned. The couple had only been married for a few months, and their relationship had been turbulent. On the very day she vanished, Rita had reportedly told her husband she was filing for divorce. Just 2 days later, her partially clothed body was discovered in a creek, strangled to death. She left behind an infant son, a 3-year-old daughter, and 2 stepsons. Though there was no evidence of sexual assault, her murder was a brutal and calculated act. Despite being the prime suspect in her murder, Stephen was never charged. Authorities suspected foul play in all three cases, but despite the disturbing pattern, no charges were ever filed against Creasman. He had a criminal record for car theft and was known to have a violent temper and a history of suicide attempts. Those who knew him described him as unstable and unpredictable. In the wake of Belinda Nored's disappearance, Creasman pawned some of her jewelry, items her children insisted she never removed, not even in the shower. He was also found in possession of a firearm that Belinda normally carried in her purse. Still, investigators were unable to find enough evidence to charge him. As time passed, the cases of Belinda Nored, Twyla Mickey, and Rita Creasman faded into the cold case files. Stephen remarried after Rita's death and lived the rest of his life without facing justice. He died in 2013 at the age of 55, taking with him any secrets he may have had about what happened to the women who had vanished from his life. Over the years, authorities have explored potential connections between Belinda Nored's disappearance and unidentified bodies found in the region. Several Jane Does discovered in Georgia and beyond have been considered as possible matches. One set of remains was found on August 3, 1992, just 3 days before Belinda was reported missing. The body was located in Gilmer County, Georgia, about an hour and 12 minutes away from Ackworth. The remains belonged to a woman estimated to be between 20 and 31 years old, standing around 5 feet 1 inch. While Belinda was 36 and approximately 5 feet 5 inches, discrepancies in reported height and weight are not uncommon in missing persons cases. Another Jane Doe was found on June 25, 1993, in Marietta, Cobb County, the very city where Belinda's truck was discovered. The remains were skeletal and only partially preserved, making identification difficult. The estimated age of the victim was between 25 and 30 years old, and she stood around 5 feet 3 inches. The location and timeline make this discovery a compelling lead in Belinda's case. Additional unidentified remains were found in Miami, Florida, in 1994 and 1997. Though the distance and timeline make a direct connection less likely, investigators continue to examine every possibility. What really happened to Belinda Nored on that August night in 1992? Was she another victim in Stephen Creasman's deadly history? Did she suffer the same fate as Rita Creasman and Twyla Mickey? Though the evidence strongly suggests foul play, without a body or a confession, the case remains open and unsolved. Stephen Creasman died a free man in 2013, but the families of Belinda Nored and Twyla Mickey are still left with unanswered questions. For decades, they have searched for closure, hoping that one day, the truth will finally come to light. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Belinda Nored or the other unsolved cases linked to Stephen Creasman, please contact the authorities. Glena Dian Quizenberry was last seen in Thomasville, Georgia, in June 1989. The details of her disappearance are disturbing, with the last known sighting involving her being carried over the shoulder of her then-boyfriend, Jerry Robert Hobbs, at a shelter for battered women. Witnesses saw the incident, yet no one intervened, leaving many questions about what transpired that night. Quizenberry, described as a petite woman with brown hair and blue eyes, had distinctive physical characteristics, including a defective right arm, burn scars on her legs, and a bullet wound scar on her shoulder. She lived in Cairo, Grady County, at the time, and was known for maintaining close contact with her daughter and sisters. Her daughter was pregnant when she vanished, adding to the heartbreak of those who loved her. Hobbs claimed that after leaving the shelter, he and Quizenberry went to a trailer on Lost Arrowhead Lane off Carter Road, near Stewart Road. He stated that she had been drinking heavily, passed out, and that he left to get food. When he returned, he said she was gone. However, this version of events raised suspicion among investigators and family members, as Quizenberry had never disappeared without a trace before. 2 months later, in August 1989, Quizenberry's loved ones reported her missing. Given her history of being in regular contact with family and the known history of domestic violence between her and Hobbs, they feared foul play. Law enforcement initially struggled to make progress in the case, and for years, it remained unsolved. In 2009, 2 decades after her disappearance, investigators reopened the case. A search of the trailer where Quizenberry had last been seen led to the discovery of blood evidence. This breakthrough resulted in the arrest of Jerry Robert Hobbs in May 2009, charged with her murder. During questioning, Hobbs refused to provide a confession, only stating that whatever had happened between him and Quizenberry was between him and God. Despite the blood evidence and strong suspicions against him, the case against Hobbs was dismissed in June 2009 due to insufficient evidence. Without a body or additional forensic proof, prosecutors were unable to secure a conviction. Hobbs was subsequently released and later moved to Washington State, where he has since passed away. There is speculation that Quizenberry's remains might have been disposed of in a well. A relative recounted that Quizenberry had spoken of a frightening experience at a well shortly before her disappearance. Investigators conducted multiple searches in the area, including a site where a house once stood before burning down. Hobbs had previously lived on that property. Law enforcement used cadaver dogs and excavation equipment to search for remains, but they came up empty. Over the years, some have tried to link Quizenberry's disappearance to various unidentified remains found in the region. Several Jane Doe cases have been reviewed, but none have been definitively matched to her. Among them were skeletal remains discovered in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina, some of which bore physical similarities to Quizenberry but lacked definitive proof of identity. Her case remains unsolved, and foul play is strongly suspected. With Hobbs deceased and no further leads, the likelihood of finding her remains diminishes with time. However, authorities continue to urge anyone with information about Quizenberry's fate to come forward.